Daniel Zeichner.
Madam Speaker, it's a pleasure to follow that inspiring speech from the member for Lewisham Deptford. And can I say it's also a pleasure to hear so many initial contributions from so many fine honourable members in the House. Now, I speak to you today as the member for Cambridge. I start by making a few words about my predecessors. Dr. Julian Huppert is a knowledgeable scientist. He's a committed person defending civil liberties. He's argued very hard in this House and argued very well, I think, on the Home Affairs Select Committee, won many friends there. He's been a passionate advocate for cycling and for environmentalism, and in the constituency he's extremely well regarded, having fought hard to improve the funding situation for our local schools and to raise the status of mental health. But my predecessors in Cambridge set a very high bar, in fact. Some of you remember David Howarth, the previous Liberal Democrat MP, again, very well regarded in this House. And before that, my dear friend Anne Campbell, who was a Labour MP from 1992 to 2005, and who's been a source of huge support and great wisdom for me. Now, I suspect not every member gets elected at their first attempt to this House. Some of us, probably it takes 2 attempts, some 3, some 4. So I'm on my 5th, and I'm here at last. And I suspect those who have followed a similar course may well have reflected early in their career that of the merits of enthusiasm and youth. And as one's career progresses, of course, one recognises the benefits of experience and maybe a little wisdom, one hopes. Also, I suspect many members, when they're first selected, and I was first selected to fight a rural seat in Norfolk, they're full of enthusiasm and optimism and find themselves writing their maiden speech. Well, I reflect on that speech from 20 years ago, there's quite a lot that's still valid today, I think. I see a Conservative opposition, a Conservative government, a Labour opposition, and much talk of Europe. But the biggest thing that's changed for me was moving back to the fine city of Cambridge 10 years ago. Biggest change in my life, certainly. And what I've seen in Cambridge over those years is a city that's on the cusp of a technological revolution. The number of jobs in the knowledge-intensive sector is absolutely phenomenal. And that, to me, is the link with the discussion about Scotland and devolution today. Because our hugely successful companies like ARM, the Babraham Research Institute, what we need in Cambridge are more flexibilities, just as people in Scotland are arguing for. And as someone who's argued for many years for devolution to the English regions, I think we do need to sort out these issues in a sensible way, which is why I did support the idea of a constitutional convention as proposed by the Labour Party at the last election. But Cambridge is also, like so many places, a tale of two cities, because the challenges our city faces are partly the challenges of success, but we also have divisions. So our businesses actually need an answer to the traffic problems, to the appalling housing crisis we have. A terraced house in Cambridge costs £450,000, double the average rent in England for most homes. Our housing benefit bill has doubled in the last 5 years. Why? Because 12,000 people in the prosperous city of Cambridge are actually earning below the living wage. It's not always the way you imagine it. We need different solutions in different places. Now, we have a Labour Council in Cambridge, I'm glad to say now, that is trying to tackle these issues. But it's hard, and the biggest one of all is affordable housing. And I see fellow honourable members who have been involved in these debates with me over many years. And the biggest problem we have is we have a valuable housing stock, but we're not allowed to borrow against it. The city deal is welcome, but it's actually a drop in the ocean compared to what we really need to turn Cambridge into the economic driver that could so much help our economy right across the UK. So when we look at those issues, why can't we borrow? And a few months ago, 18 months ago, there was a chink of light from the Treasury when people began, and I apologise for the jargon, but to talk about tax increment financing, a possibility of actually borrowing against that value. What happened? The usual forces of conservatism in the Treasury won out yet again. And this has happened to governments of both complexion. So I say to both front benches, we need to think imaginatively if we are to solve these huge challenges that face not just cities like Cambridge, but our whole country and our other nations as well. But if we are to create the kind of tolerant, diverse city that people in a city like Cambridge want to see, it's going to mean balancing a whole range of complicated and difficult issues. And also recognising that even within cities like Cambridge, there are many, many different Cambridges. Not just the university we all know and love so much. We have actually 3 other universities, 2 Anglia Ruskin doing so well. We also have the University of the Third Age. We also have the Open University, which my mother was pleased to be one of the first people to go to back in the 60s. But these many Cambridges, I tell you, there was one moment earlier this year when Cambridge United played Manchester United in a rather unequal battle, perhaps, in the FA Cup, but where we held those mighty people to a goalless draw at the Abbey Stadium. There was a brief moment when people saw that other Cambridge, and I suggest to you that in our communities right across the country, there are other cities, other places, and we need to understand all of them. So I stand before you today as a Labour MP for Cambridge, who, yes, will represent the buccaneering investors and high-tech gurus of our city that will create wealth. But most of all, I'll be standing up and arguing for our public sector workers, who so often are forgotten. But without them, the rest of the city cannot do its job. I'm proud to represent Cambridge and look forward to standing up for the city in the years ahead.
Patricia Gibbs.